got him 6 times already in the
Oh, he knocked him down there. Oh. And another powerful right by Jansen.
Fighting has been part of NHL hockey for as long as people can remember, and it's always sure to get fans on their feet. But there is concern about a link between the players who fight like that and the brain disease CTE. Former Blues player Todd Ewen used to fight like that, and in 2015, after he retired, he shot and killed himself. Tonight, his widow wants to know why the National Hockey League is still skating around the issue of brain injuries as she tells her emotional story.
He had become just a shell of himself, and he would say to me, you know, with fear in his eyes, he would say to me, I don't know what's happening to me. I'm so afraid.
Those are the words of Kelly Ewen talking about her late husband in the final years of his life.
It's devastating. It destroys your entire life.
Todd Ewen came off the bench to go after Van Dorp, and here they go.
Todd Ewen was a former St. Louis Blues hockey player.
Todd Ewen.
He spent more than a decade in the NHL as one of the league's most aggressive fighters.
Well, that's going to be a serious situation for St. Louis.
But off the ice, he was said to be both quiet and funny.
That's the one thing that I really loved about him, is that he made me laugh.
But in 2015, at the age of 49, he shot and killed himself.
Nathan Horton lets go of the pass.
Ewen is not alone. A number of former NHL enforcers have died young, and after death were diagnosed with a degenerative brain disease called CTE. There's a lot we don't know about CTE. What we do know is that symptoms don't usually appear until years after head trauma. Those symptoms can include memory loss, anger, and depression.
We know in anybody that repetitive blows to your head is not a good thing. Okay, I mean, it just causes repetitive trauma as time goes on. You got 2 colliding bodies there.
Dr. Mark Halstead is a concussion specialist with Washington University and a hockey fan. We showed him video of some of Todd Ewen's fights.
See, the big part I take away from that I hear as a doctor is I hear a large, rambunctious crowd endorsing that action.
Did you suffer concussions in your career that you know of?
Yeah, well, I probably suffered a lot more that I just shushed away.
Another former Blues player, Cam Jansen, was involved in more than 300 fights in his hockey career.
And another powerful right by Jansen.
I'm going to suck it up. I don't want to be like, oh, my head hurts again. Oh, my head. Well, geez. Okay, we're gonna sit you out.
No one knows how many concussions Todd Ewen suffered, but when doctors in Toronto posthumously tested his brain, they concluded he didn't have it, despite having all the symptoms.
And I literally fell to my knees. I couldn't believe it.
It turned out that doctors in Toronto were wrong. Kelly had the brain tissue retested at Boston University and double-checked by researchers at the Mayo Clinic. And late last year we learned that Todd Ewen did in fact have CTE. While there seems to be a logical and likely connection between concussions and CTE, there is no scientific certainty yet.
The hard part is only can be diagnosed in someone after they've died.
So unlike the NFL, which has pledged hundreds of millions of dollars to find ways to curb concussions in football, the NHL has refused to acknowledge a link between the sport and brain injury.
There's guys that coming out and they're like, I'm messed up, and no one told me, and now I'm having seizures at my granddaughter or my daughter's wedding, and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of issues going on, and I do think the NHL could do a lot more.
Kelly Ewen agrees.
There are other guys suffering the same way. I've heard from them. And I just want them to be able to get the help that they need.
For the league not to step up and admit to a problem, says Kelly, is to admit they don't care about its players.
It just makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Now, I also talked with Dr. Ann McKee of Boston University, the woman who found CTE in Todd Ewen's brain, and she tells me, I think it's the NHL owner's responsibility to take care of the players if they encounter health problems later in life. You can see my interview with her on KSDK.com. We reached out to the National Hockey League for comment, and we have not heard back.
Interesting they're silent on this. Doesn't mean they couldn't change their mind eventually. Of course, the NFL denied this connection for years.
Right, and now they're donating millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to concussion research. We'll see if the NHL steps up.
Thanks, Mike.